Hi guys, my name is Nayak and I am a design faculty. I studied from NIFT New Delhi. It's been a couple of years. I am teaching students how to crack that exam for reputed colleges like IIT, NID and NIFT. Okay, so I train them to crack design part which is known as DAT. Okay, let's understand what is DAT. In design terminology or the design examinations which held in India, we have to go through this DAT exam. What is this DAT exam? This is Design Aptitude Test. Okay, and this is the crucial part. This is the crucial part to land down to a very good college in India. Okay, the tier 1 colleges in India, which is known as IIT in design and NID, which is the OG in design, and NIFT, which is OG in fashion. Okay, understood. So basically, I teach them what is design. I make them understand what exactly is design. So today we will start by understanding the basics of design. Okay. So my first questions to you guys is that what is design? Okay. So like a layman language, the design term sounds maybe creative. Maybe they think like it's related to the fine arts, maybe some art and craft, and some creative related to some creative work. Okay, those are partially true, but it's much more those things. Design is a process. Okay, now let me explain you what exactly is a design. Okay, so design have some basic pillars. Okay, some foundation, some basic pillars. Let's understand what are the basic necessities for the design. Okay, so before I tell you those things, let's understand what exactly design means for other people. See, design is a process which depends from person to person. Everyone have a different perspective about design. I have a different perspective about design. Might be you have a different perspective about design. He might have a different perspective about design. She might have a different perspective about design. I suppose according to me, design is a process where I solve problems. Okay, either it can be a technological or a service. It can be anything. Okay, it may be a product. It can be anything. So design is something which depends from one person to another person. It varies from person to person. Okay. So now let's understand what are the basic pillars of the design. Okay. So first of all, it might be whatever. It depends from person to person. But one common factor is there. The design is a creative process. It's a creative process. And why is it a creative process? See, whenever we think we try to create something, we try to solve something, we look for a creative solution, right? And that creative solution, that thought process is very creative. So that's why the first pillar of design is known as creative process. So creative process is the basic, is the backbone of design. Okay, next, the most important factor of design is problem solving. Problem solving. Okay, why I am saying you this problem solving is the most important factor of design, because if a design doesn't solve any problem, then we don't consider it as a design. Okay. Otherwise, there will be no difference between an art and a design. So there is a difference between an art and design. A design always solves a problem. Even when we evolve, design simultaneously evolved, and design evolved by solving a problem. So the basic necessity of design a good design, that design should solve a particular problem. So that's why it's a problem solver. Understood? Okay, let's jump to the next one. Okay, now when I said about problem solving, so problem doesn't arise itself, right? Okay, might be there might be some radical problems, there might be some redesigning issues, but if there is a problem solving, so how to solve that problem? If we can't recognize the problem, then how can we solve it? So we need a particular thinking which is known as critical thinking. Critical thinking and problem identity finding. Okay, the third point and the fourth point is critical thinking and problem identifying. Okay, if we don't have a critical thinking, we can't observe a problem. Okay, and if we observe a problem, if we identify a problem, then we approach to solve it. Then we go for problem solving and creative process. So these four things are the basic pillars of design. Now there's more to this thing. Let me explain you what are those things. Okay, I hope you understood this thing. Let's go further. Next is creative thinking. Next is creative thinking. Okay, whenever we talk about design or art or any creative process, it's the thought process. Okay, it's the thought process, is the transfusion which creates in our mind, which bonds or give birth to a new design or to a new solution, which is alternatively we call it creative thinking. Okay. Next, I'm going to tell you some important factor about design. Okay. So there are two types of designs. There are two types of designing which we practice in industry or in our day-to-day life. Okay. Types of design. Number one is radical design. Number two is redesign. Okay, first we'll discuss about what is radical design. Okay, so let's discuss what is radical design. Okay, what is radical? What is radical? So radical is something which doesn't exist. Suppose it's a classroom, and in this classroom I don't find any problem is there, or I find any problem is there. So radical design is something which is related to a problem which is non-existent, which we can't see it, right? But there is a lack of something, and who thinks radically, who figure out that particular problem and works out on it, okay, and make a product and try to solve it. So that is known as radical design. Okay, correct. Now let's understand what is redesign. So basically in industry, in product industry, in fashion industry, in apparels, in automobile, and in much more design sectors, we practice redesign. We generally practice redesign. Suppose I became a fashion designer. And I have to design an upperwear. I have to design a top. So this is a shirt. Okay. So it has been designed. It has been designed. There should be a collar. There should be a collar. There should be a sleeve, and there should be a particular length to my particular body, to my body. So this has been already designed. Now when I became a fashion designer, what I do, I don't change the measurements, I don't change the dynamics, I change the colors, I change the fabric, I change the look, touch, look and feel of the garment. Okay, so that is known as redesign. Suppose, just I'm giving you an example. Suppose why bottle has been created. Okay, I'm giving asking one example. Why bottle has been created? Bottle has been created because it's portable to carry water with us. Okay, so when someone figured out the problem that we travel, so we need water to drink because we get thirst. Okay, so someone designed a container. So that at that point of time, that particular problem was radical, and whoever designed that bottle or the container, he did the radical design. Now you became a product designer, and now you have to design a bottle for a Milton. What you will do? You will add some new features to it. Maybe some cooling features. Maybe more harden the material. Maybe some advancements. Okay, but now what you are doing? You are doing the redesign. And when it has been invented, is known as radical. Now you understand what is radical and redesign. Okay, got my point. So these are the basic elements, not basic elements. These are the basic things to know about design. Before we start pursuing designing, we should know this thing. So we can think and process in a particular direction that we can achieve to our to a point. Okay, now there are a little bit more things about design which I will explain it to you. And most of the people, most of the parents in India, I am concerned that most of the students, they are misguided, and most of the parents, they are also misguided. They don't find a difference between the design and art. Okay, fine arts and design. So let's understand what is design and fine arts. Okay. So let's first understand what is fine arts. It is also a creative process. It is also a creative process. Designing also is a creative process. Okay, now what makes different from design? In this also we need creativity. In this also we need creativity. So what makes different? What makes having line in between the design and the fine arts? Okay, both are the creative process. Okay, by the elements are the same. Okay, in fine arts, basically in fine arts there is no limitations. No limitation. Okay, so that's why we call it art. Art is all about boundaryless. Okay, boundless. You think, you go beyond, you do anything, you conceptualize, you can do whatever you want. But in design category, you have limited space. Suppose from here to here, this is art. So in design, you will have here to here. In the spectrum, you have to think limitless, but the spectrum would be limited in design. Okay, understood. Try to understand. Let me tell you an example. Design is all about practicality and functionality. Okay, the design should be functional. If a design shouldn't be functional, then we don't consider it. It is a design. We consider it as an art. Suppose this is a marker. This is a marker. So it have a particular volume, it have a particular length, it have a particular circumference. Okay. Suppose in the name of art, I will make it this big. If I will make it this big, and I will increase the thickness of the marker, it will be appropriate to write or handle on the board. It will be appropriate to carry. It will be comfortable to carry. No, right? So that's why. But in the name of art, I can do it. Do it, right? I can do it. I can make, instead of a tubular, I can make it in a zigzag pattern. I can make it any texture on it, whatever it is. But in the name of art, I can do it. Okay, and I can defend it. But for a design sensibility, there should be some restriction. So there should be appropriate size to carry it. Okay, there should be appropriate circumference to carry it. So that's why design is all about limitation, and for art there are no limitations. So this is the one and only thing which divides a fine art and a design. Okay, now you understood. Okay, now let's jump to the elements of design. Okay, now let's jump to the elements of design. Okay, elements, fundamentals, and principles. Okay, of design, fine arts, and drawing. Okay, so basically there are some elements which is basically required to create a design. Either it could be a good design or a bad design, but there are some basic necessities to create a design. So in design is a very professional field or very professional sector, so we call it as elements of design. And those elements in other field or other sector, like in fine arts, we call it fundamentals or principles of fine arts or drawing. And later on I will explain you the relativity in between the design and fine arts and the drawing, and what's the difference between the fine arts and drawing, which is the basic necessity for design. Okay, so let's talk about the elements of design. Okay, elements of design. So before I explain you what are the elements of the design, I need you to know that there is a sequence. There is a sequence to know what are the elements and how it started or how it processed. Okay, suppose you, I am an artist, I am a child, I am a designer, and you give me a task. Sir, do this thing, sir, design me a thing, or whatever it is. Okay. So the moment I hold my pen, I marker or a pencil, whatever it is, and I touch the surface, the something has created over it. Like something. The moment I touched my surface, okay, so something has created what it is. So this is, we call it a dot. Okay. And without this dot, I can't process. Okay, I can't go further. So that's why the first element of design is dot. Got my point? The first element of design is dot. And after dot, on this dot, I started drawing. I made a line. So it's quite obvious. The second element will be line. Now, this is the line, this is the line, this is the line, this is the line. Now, let's understand. Now, pay attention. When I enclose the line, it doesn't remain the line. It became a shape, and shapes are always on 2D. Okay, so the third element is shape. Understood? Now what would be the fourth element? Okay, what would be the fourth element? Suppose this is the shape. Okay, this is the shape, which is the third element. Now I have to go one step further. We have to evolve, right? So this is 2D. Shapes are always in 2D. Now I have to make it in 3D. So if I'll make this in 3D, what it will become? It will become a cube. Okay. Now cube is not a shape. It has a 3D form. So we call it form. Form. Okay, understood? We call it form. Now, this cube is geometrical. What about the organic shapes? What about the organic shapes? Shapes can be geometrical, organic, and unidentified or irregular. What about the organic shapes? Where what do you call it when the organic shapes transforms itself from 2D to 3D? Okay. Now, please pay attention. When a geometrical shape transforms itself from 2D to 3D, we call it forms. And when a organic shape transform itself from 2D to 3D, we call it figures. Understood? Okay. So this four thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, this four are the basic elements of design or fundamentals of finance. But there are few more elements which is also necessary. The next element is volume, sorry, not volume. It's color. And the next one is texture, space. Okay, you can add it volume. Not volume, it's value. Let's consider its value. Okay. So, either you can consider it or you don't consider it, it's okay. Because this is a little bit related to the fine arts, but we are talking about design. So let's chuck it out. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the elements of design. By including all these things, we can create a design. Either it can be a good design or it can be a bad design, but we can create a design. So now we created a design by using these elements. Now who will decide it's the appropriate design, it's a right design or a wrong design? See, a design which you have ever created, it can't be wrong because you have created from scratch, you have created from zero. So no one has the right to tell you these things that it's a wrong design. Okay. So, but it should be appropriate. But the market is competitive, very competitive. It should be appropriate to fetch some marks. Okay. To fetch some marks. Now, there are certain guidelines to judge it. Okay. There are certain guidelines to judge it. And the guidelines comes under which is known as principles of design, and it has 14 important points, or we call it guidelines, which guides us. It's not compulsory, but it guides us for the beginners or to the pro level or advanced level designers to create an appropriate design. Okay, I hope you understood this thing, and all the best for the future. Okay.